Have you ever been fired by email? No warning, no explanation, just a cold notification at 2:30 a.m., like a decade of dedication could be deleted with one click. I thought that message would destroy me. Instead, I turned it into a weapon, and the very people who thought I was just another name on the payroll handed me the keys to demolish their entire $275 million acquisition. My name is Rachel Donovan, and until 3 weeks ago, I was the Director of Operations at Brightcore Solutions, 34 years old, 12 years with the company, architect of every system that kept our multi-million-dollar machine running. I'd built my entire adult life around that glass tower in downtown Seattle, arriving before sunrise, leaving long after the cleaning crews had gone home. My blood type might as well have been corporate blue. That Tuesday morning started like any other. I'd gotten to the office at 6:45 a.m., coffee in hand, already mentally organizing the day's priorities. The acquisition talks with Meridian Global had been consuming everyone's attention for months. $275 million, the kind of number that makes board members salivate and employees nervously update their resumes. I wasn't worried, though. If anything, I was essential to making the transition work. Nobody else understood the intricate web of systems, compliance protocols, and client databases like I did. The email came at 7:23 a.m. I remember the exact time because I was in the middle of reviewing integration timelines when the notification popped up. From Clara Whitfield, our new CEO. Subject: organizational restructuring. Effective immediately. Your position has been eliminated as part of our strategic realignment initiative. Your access will be deactivated at noon today. HR will contact you regarding your severance package. That was it. 12 years compressed into 3 sentences. Clara had been CEO for exactly 47 days. She'd swept in from some Fortune 500 company with promises of optimization and lean operations, the kind of executive who wore $5,000 suits and treated employees like entries on a spreadsheet. She'd barely spoken 10 words to me since arriving, and now she was erasing me with less effort than it takes to order lunch. I sat there, staring at my screen, waiting for the rage to come, or tears, or something. Instead, I felt this strange, crystalline clarity wash over me, like watching a chess game from above and suddenly seeing all the moves at once. Around me, the office was starting to fill up, the usual morning energy, people grabbing coffee, discussing last night's game, complaining about traffic, normal Tuesday morning sounds, except I could feel the shift when certain people walked by my office, the quick glances, the awkward body language. They knew, of course they knew. In corporate America, blood in the water travels fast. My assistant, Janet, knocked tentatively on my doorframe. Rachel, Clara wants to know if you can clear your office by 11. 11. Not even the courtesy of a full day. Tell Clara I'll be gone by 10:30, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. The next 2 hours were surreal, packing up 12 years into 3 cardboard boxes while my colleagues pretended to be busy with suddenly urgent tasks. Only Marcus from IT had the decency to stop by, mumbling something about how fucked up this was. Everyone else kept their distance, as if unemployment was contagious. But here's what Clara didn't know, what none of them knew. Every system, every process, every critical piece of infrastructure I'd built over the years was documented in my head, not in any manual. The passwords, the workarounds, the vendor relationships, the undocumented fixes that kept everything running smoothly. All of it lived with me. Brightcore's operational knowledge wasn't stored in some cloud server. It was walking out the door in 3 cardboard boxes. As I waited for the elevator, holding my pathetic boxes, I caught my reflection in the polished steel doors. 12 years, and this was how it ended. Not with a thank you, not with a transition plan, not even with a face-to-face conversation. Just an email at 7:23 on a Tuesday morning. The elevator dinged, and as the doors opened, I made a decision. Clara thought she was cutting fat, streamlining operations for the acquisition, but she'd just made the biggest strategic error of her career. She'd fired the one person who could make or break the Meridian deal, and I was going to make sure she knew it. The silence that followed my departure was more telling than any exit interview could have been. I heard about it later from Marcus, who kept me updated through carefully worded texts. The office had gone tomb quiet after I left. People worked with their heads down, avoiding eye contact, terrified they might be next. Clara had made her point, nobody was safe. That first day home was strange. I sat in my apartment at 2 in the afternoon, still wearing my business clothes, staring at my laptop screen. My corporate email was already bouncing back messages. My keycard would have been deactivated. 12 years of muscle memory kept making me reach for a phone that no longer rang, check a calendar I could no longer access. But the shock was already transforming into something else. Something colder, more calculated. By Wednesday morning, the cracks were already showing. Marcus texted me at 8:15 a.m. "Shit's hitting the fan. Nobody can access the vendor portal. Clara's screaming at it." The vendor portal? I'd built that integration 3 years ago. A complex web of APIs and authentication protocols that managed our entire supply chain. The documentation existed, sure, but it was like having a map written in a language nobody else spoke. Without my tribal knowledge, they were essentially flying blind. Thursday brought more texts, this time from Janet, using her personal phone. "Emergency meeting with Meridian team. They're asking about compliance protocols. Nobody knows what to tell them." Of course they didn't. The compliance system was my baby, a delicate ecosystem of federal regulations, state requirements, and industry standards that I'd personally maintained. Clara had just fired the only person who understood how all the pieces fit together. But Friday was when things got interesting. I was at a coffee shop, finally starting to process what had happened, when my phone rang. Unknown number, but I recognized the area code. Corporate. "Rachel. This is David Morrison from legal." "David. We'd worked together on countless contracts. He was one of the good ones, always straight with me." "Hi, David. Surprised Clara's letting you call me." A pause. "She's not. This is unofficial. Rachel, we need to talk. Can you meet me somewhere?" An hour later, we were sitting in a Starbucks downtown, far from the office. David looked exhausted. Stress etched into every line of his face. "The Meridian deal is falling apart," he said without preamble. "They're doing their technical due diligence, and we can't answer half their questions. The integration timeline you built. Nobody can explain it. The data architecture might as well be hieroglyphics. Clara's in full panic mode." I sipped my coffee, keeping my expression neutral. "That's unfortunate." "Rachel, I'm going to be straight with you. We need you. The board is breathing down Clara's neck. If this deal falls through..." He didn't need to finish. A failed acquisition of this magnitude would be career suicide for everyone involved. "I don't work there anymore. David, Clara made that very clear. What if we brought you back as a consultant just for the transition?" I almost laughed. "You want me to save Clara's ass after she fired me via email?" David winced. "I know how it looks. But this is bigger than Clara. There are 300 employees whose jobs depend on this acquisition going through. Stock options, retirement plans, everything." He was right, and I knew it. My former colleagues, people I'd worked with for years, didn't deserve to suffer because Clara was an idiot. But that didn't mean I was going to make this easy. "Even if I wanted to help," I said slowly, "Clara made it clear she doesn't value what I bring to the table. Why would I put myself in that position again?" "Name your price," David said quickly. "Consulting rate, terms, everything. Just think about it." I stood up, leaving my half-finished coffee on the table. "Tell you what, David, if Meridian wants to talk to me directly, they have my number, but I'm done dealing with Clara." As I walked out, I could feel David's desperation following me. The truth was, I'd already decided what I was going to do. Clara had fired me thinking I was expendable, replaceable, just another line item to cut. She was about to learn that some people, some knowledge, some experience can't be simply deleted with a 3-sentence email. The silence in that office after I left, that was just the beginning. The real silence would come when they realized the machine they were trying to sell didn't have an operator anymore. And I was the only one who knew how to turn it back on. The call from Meridian came on Monday morning at 9:30 a.m. I'd been expecting it, but not this soon. "Ms. Donovan. This is Ethan Cole from Meridian Global's acquisition team. I believe we met briefly during one of our preliminary meetings last month." I remembered him, tall, early 40s, with the kind of sharp attention to detail that made most executives nervous. He'd been the only one in those meetings asking the right questions, the hard questions that everyone else was too polite or too ignorant to raise. Mr. Cole, yes, I remember. I'll cut to the chase. We've been conducting our due diligence on Brightcore, and frankly, we're concerned. The operational infrastructure appears to be significantly more complex than we were led to believe, and we've just learned that the person who apparently built and maintained most of these systems is no longer with the company. Is that so? I kept my voice neutral, professional. Ms. Donovan, I'm not calling to play games. We've invested considerable resources into this acquisition. My team tells me that without proper knowledge transfer, integration could take 18 months instead of 6. That changes everything. There was frustration in his voice, but also something else. Respect, maybe. He understood what Clara clearly didn't, that human capital, institutional knowledge, wasn't just another asset to be stripped and sold. I appreciate your position, Mr. Cole, but I'm no longer a Brightcore employee. Clara Whitfield made that decision last week. A long pause. Would you be willing to meet with me unofficially? I'd like to understand exactly what we're dealing with here. 3 hours later, I was sitting across from Ethan Cole in a private dining room at the Fairmont. He'd chosen neutral ground, away from both company offices. Smart. Let me be completely transparent, he began, pushing aside the untouched menu. We've been trying to map Brightcore's operational systems for the past 5 days. My technical team is some of the best in the business, and they're telling me it's like trying to reverse engineer a Swiss watch in the dark. I allowed myself a small smile. It's a complex system. It's more than complex. It's Byzantine, custom integrations, proprietary protocols, undocumented dependencies. My team lead used the word impossible 3 times in this morning's briefing, and he never uses that word. What did Clara tell you when you raised these concerns? Ethan's expression darkened. She assured us that everything was fully documented, and that her remaining team was more than capable of managing the transition. And you believed her. I wanted to. The financials make sense. The market position is solid. The client base is excellent. But none of that matters if we can't actually operate the company after we buy it. He leaned forward. Which brings me to why we're here. I need to know, can this deal be salvaged? This was the moment I'd been waiting for. The pivot point where everything could change. Yes, I said simply. But not the way Clara's approaching it. Go on. I pulled out my personal laptop, something I'd prepared over the weekend. This is a high-level overview of Brightcore's actual operational architecture, not the sanitized version Clara's been showing you, but how it really works. For the next hour, I walked Ethan through the reality of what Meridian was trying to buy. The legacy systems held together with digital duct tape, the client databases that required manual synchronization every 72 hours, the compliance protocols that were half automated, half manual, and wholly dependent on institutional knowledge that now resided solely in my head. Ethan's expression grew increasingly grim as I spoke. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. She fired you knowing all this. Clara's been CEO for 7 weeks. She sees headcount and overhead, not operational reality. This is... He paused, choosing his words carefully. This is material information that should have been disclosed. If we'd proceeded based on Clara's representations, it would have been catastrophic. 18 months minimum for integration, I confirmed. That's assuming nothing breaks during the transition, and things will break. Ethan stood up, pacing to the window, outside. Seattle's skyline stretched gray and endless. You know what this means, don't you? If I report this to my board, they'll either kill the deal or demand a massive price reduction. Clara's career at Brightcore will be over. That's not my problem anymore. He turned back to me, and there was something like admiration in his eyes. No, I suppose it's not. He returned to his seat. But I have a different proposition. What if we make it your solution instead? What exactly are you proposing? I asked, though I could already see where this was heading. Ethan pulled out his phone and showed me something that made my pulse quicken. An email thread between Clara and his board, dated 3 days ago. Clara was claiming that the minor staffing adjustment wouldn't impact operations, that all critical knowledge was thoroughly documented and redundantly managed. She's lying to my board, Ethan said flatly. And she's putting a $275 million acquisition at risk to save face about a personnel decision that should never have been made. He was right, of course, but I needed to hear him say it. The way I see it, Ethan continued, we have 3 options. 1, we walk away from the deal entirely. Meridian takes a hit for the sunk costs, but it's better than buying a company we can't operate. 2, we proceed based on Clara's assurances and pray nothing catastrophic happens. Or 3. He paused, meeting my eyes. We restructure this deal with you as the linchpin. I'm listening. Brightcore needs this acquisition. Their burn rate is unsustainable, and they'll be looking at massive layoffs within 6 months without our capital. My board wants this deal too. The market synergies are too good to pass up, but we need someone who actually understands what we're buying. He slid a document across the table, even upside down. I could read the header consulting agreement, Meridian Global. $40,000 a month for 6 months, reporting directly to me, not Clara. You oversee the entire transition, full authority over the integration team, and complete access to both companies' resources. After 6 months, if you want it, there's a permanent position as VP of Operations at Meridian, starting at $300,000 base plus equity. It was more than generous. It was a golden parachute Clara could never have imagined I'd receive. And Clara. That's where this gets interesting. Ethan's smile was sharp. She doesn't know I'm meeting with you, as far as she's concerned. We're still in standard due diligence, but tomorrow morning, I'm presenting my findings to both boards, hers and mine. Either she accepts you as transition lead, or we walk. She'll never agree to that. Her ego won't allow it. Then the deal dies, and she'll have to explain to her board why she sabotaged a critical acquisition by firing the one person essential to its success. Either way, she's finished. The only question is whether she takes the company down with her. I thought about my former colleagues, the good people who didn't deserve to lose their jobs because Clara was an idiot. But I also thought about that email, the casual cruelty of being dismissed after 12 years without even a conversation. I want something else, I said. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Clara doesn't communicate with me directly, ever. All interaction goes through you or your team. I won't sit in meetings where she can grandstand or try to undermine me. If she wants updates, she gets them from you. Done. And I want it in writing that my role is non-negotiable. She can't fire me, can't reduce my authority, can't interfere with my decisions regarding the transition. Any attempt to do so voids the acquisition agreement. Ethan actually laughed. You've thought this through. I've had a week with nothing to do but think. Anything else? I considered for a moment. Yes, when this is over, when the acquisition is complete, and the transition is successful, I want Clara to know that she handed me the power to destroy everything she was trying to build. I want her to understand that her casual cruelty, her corporate politicking, her complete disregard for the people who actually make companies run, all of it led to this moment. That's not something I can put in a contract. No, I agreed, but we both know it's going to happen anyway. When she's sitting in that board meeting tomorrow, realizing she has to choose between accepting my terms or watching the deal collapse, she'll know, every day for the next 6 months, watching me do the job she thought anyone could do. She'll know. Ethan extended his hand. Do we have an agreement? I shook it, feeling the weight of what was about to unfold. We do, but I want the contract signed before your board meeting tomorrow. My legal team is standing by. You'll have it within 2 hours. As we stood to leave, Ethan paused. You know, when I heard you'd been let go, I thought Clara had made a tactical error. Now I realize it was much worse than that. She handed you a loaded gun and painted a target on her own back. No, I corrected him. She handed me the keys to the kingdom. She just didn't realize I was the only one who knew how to use them. The contract arrived at my apartment at 11:45 p.m. that night, delivered by courier with Meridian's legal team available on video call to walk through every clause. Everything I'd asked for was there, written in bulletproof legalese. My signature was barely dry when my phone started buzzing with texts from former colleagues. What the hell is happening? From Marcus. Emergency board meeting at 7 a.m. tomorrow. Clara's losing her mind. From Janet. Please tell me you're behind this. From David Morrison. I didn't respond to any of them. Let them wonder. Let the rumors build. By morning, Clara would understand the magnitude of her mistake. The board meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. Tuesday. I wasn't invited, of course, but I didn't need to be there. Ethan would handle it. Instead, I sat in my apartment, laptop open, watching the Brightcore employee Slack channels I still had access to through a former colleague's login, the digital equivalent of watching a building burn from across the street. 9:15 a.m. Anyone know what's happening in the boardroom? Clara just went in looking like death. 9:30 a.m. Holy shit. Meridian's entire team just showed up. 9:45 a.m. Security just locked down the executive floor, nobody in or out. Then, at 10:23 a.m., Ethan called me. It's done, he said simply. You should have seen her face when I presented my findings. She actually tried to claim you'd sabotaged the systems before leaving. And I showed the board the email she sent firing you. Then I showed them the timeline of when the problem started surfacing. Rather hard to sabotage systems when you've been locked out for a week. What was her next move? She tried to minimize your role, said any competent operations manager could handle the transition. So I had my team present their assessment. Use the word catastrophic 12 times. Impossible got mentioned 18 times. My favorite was operational suicide. I could picture it perfectly. Clara in her $5,000 suit, watching her carefully constructed narrative crumble as actual experts explained reality to the board. The best part, Ethan continued, was when board member Harrison asked her directly, "Why would you fire someone so critical without a succession plan?" She actually said, and I quote, "No one is irreplaceable." And Harrison laughed, actually laughed. Then he asked if she'd like to personally oversee the integration since it was so simple. She went completely white. The sound of commotion came through Ethan's phone. Raised voices, a door slamming. "Hold on," he said. Clara just stormed out. The board's calling a recess. 15 minutes later, he called back. "They want to meet with you, today, 2 p.m. The entire board wants to hear directly from you about what it'll take to save this deal." And Clara. Mandatory administrative leave, effective immediately, pending the board's review of her leadership decisions. She's been escorted from the building. I felt something cold and satisfying settle in my chest. Not joy exactly, but the deep satisfaction of watching karma operate with surgical precision. "There's more," Ethan added. "The board wants to issue a press release about bringing you on as strategic transition advisor. They want to reassure the market that the acquisition is proceeding with enhanced operational oversight." Enhanced operational oversight, I repeated. That's a nice way of saying Clara fucked up so badly they had to bring back the person she fired. The corporate world has such elegant euphemisms, doesn't it? That afternoon, I walked back into Brightcore's building for the first time since my humiliating exit with 3 cardboard boxes. This time, security was expecting me. This time,